Real quick, I know I mentioned it in my last video about Talk to Me, but the WGA and SAG-AFTRA are still on strike. Those are the writers and the actors are still on strike, fighting for fair rights against a lot of really weird proposed AI bills and just better treatment overall. I just want to re-extend my support there. If you want to know more of my thoughts, that's at the beginning of my last video, but just wanted to pop in here and mention that quick. Due to your many requests, I'm here to talk about Red, White, and Royal Blue. A book that I've seen in every airport I've stepped into for well over a year that has now been adapted into a Prime original. And I'm here to talk about them both. And I will say, the book is pretty gosh darn adorable. I got swept into the romance of this ridiculous plot that involved erasing and then recreating an entire section of the royal family, because this is the story, a tale as old as time, where the son of the President of the United States falls in love with the Prince of England. International relations have never been so steamy. That's probably not even true. Anyways, the story actually does a pretty good job focusing on each of their goals to make a difference in the world, to leave things at least somewhat better than how they found them, and how hard that can be when there's certain expectations and duties placed upon your life. And I always like when we can add a little bit of depth into our romances. So based on the fact that I saw this book pretty much everywhere for years, it seemed pretty obvious that it was just due for an adaptation, and we're finally here, and it's fine. I don't know what the general consensus is gonna be yet because I got a screener copy early, so maybe you guys all love it, but I just think it's like lacking in something that the book really had, which people will be like, well, that's always the case between books and adaptations. But no, sometimes I feel like books still do a really good job conveying like every different emotion, whereas the movie makes just some like weird changes that I feel like it cheapened the impact in areas, and it wasn't always for the time-saving purposes. It is still really cute in a lot of ways. I think it did work hard to kind of maintain that fire within Alex for like political change, but then it just kind of felt like a Cliff Notes version of this story. So we'll go through most of those changes. Like I'm not going to mention every single time like a scene is condensed with another scene or whatever, but you know, like what the movie did that I liked and what I didn't. Overall though, I think they did a good job infusing comedy into the story, kept things fairly cute and sweet, but a lot of it ends up feeling very rushed, even though the movie is just about 2 hours long and made one change that I completely hated. So the book itself is from Alex's perspective. His mother is the President of the United States heading into her re-election campaign, and he wants to be as involved as possible. He grew up pretty working class, but his parents were always fighting up the political and legislative ladder, and he has very similar aspirations that he plans to dive right into following his university graduation. But he seems to harbor a personal hatred for the Prince of England, Henry. Yes, we are kind of gonna be getting an enemies to lover, but with international intrigue and duty-bound responsibility. And yeah, I liked it. We find out that Alex was pretty obsessed with Henry growing up, but couldn't recognize in himself that it was actually a little crush. But when he finally meets him, Henry's a huge jerk to him. So Alex assumes it must be because Henry sees him as lesser. So now everything Henry does annoys him, from his facial expressions to the fact that his dog's name is David. But then he finds out it was for David Bowie, but then he gets more annoyed that he didn't just use that. Though the ebook narrator kept pronouncing it Bowie.
Your dog is named David. After Bowie. What the hell? Why not call him Bowie then?
Which made me wonder if he didn't know who David Bowie was. So for 4 years, Alex has just been harboring this rage towards Henry that feels a lot more like stupid, sexy Flanders with how obsessive he gets about it.
Stupid, sexy Flanders!
But speaking of stupid, sexy Ned Flanders, out there living his best life, staying active, flexible, it just reminds me of today's sponsor, Copilot. Copilot is a one-on-one remote personal training service that sets you up with personalized workouts designed around your goals and available equipment for a fraction of the cost as traditional personal training. I'd literally been trying so hard to get back into a regular fitness routine from home, but even with my history of working in a gym, I just kept defaulting to the same handful of exercises or just forgetting to do anything at all. With Copilot, my trainer Brooke put together a rotation of full body workouts for me to go through with solid variation to keep things interesting. She also set me up with a variety of extra workouts for all the different situations I find myself in, like when I'm visiting my parents and they have different equipment, or a full body weight exercise for when I'm traveling. And that really is my favorite part about Copilot. They meet you where you are with what you have. Even if all you have is your own body, because it's all you need. The app itself has your coach guiding you through each workout with different tips for each movement, but it'll also constantly be showing you how each move is performed with a real person. And if you have an Apple Watch, it'll actually track all of your movements so you get more accurate in-the-moment feedback for your future workouts. But you don't need it. All you need is the app, and as long as you're honest with your feedback during your workout, your coach will be there every step of the way to get you where you want to be. And if you don't end up liking using the coach you picked, you can request a new one anytime you want, as many times as you want. For me, it really is just both having someone that's going to remind me to do my workouts and encourage me to stay consistent. I don't have to think about what I should be doing next or for how long. The app just keeps me cruising, which has been invaluable to me because between work and ADHD, it is almost impossible to get myself to do anything else. But I know I feel so much better when I actually stay active. My trainer Brooke is super encouraging and willing to work with any changes I might need. Like, I have some elbow issues and we've worked around that, but she'll also check to make sure it's not just an issue with bad form. They really do just try to keep everything as flexible as possible, whether you have an entire gym to work with or just a little section of your living room, just whatever they can do to keep you consistent, because that's what they care about. So if you're interested in trying Copilot for yourself and getting started on some goals, check out my link in the description down below to get a 14-day free trial with your own personal trainer. So I've given you the general premise of the book, but what are some of those immediate big changes? For one, they've gotten rid of Alex's sister June, but kept Nora, the granddaughter of the vice president, who Alex has known for years. I don't entirely know how I feel about them getting rid of June, but I guess I can understand wanting to condense down some characters. Instead of Alex's mom and dad being divorced but still amicable because they have similar legislative goals, they seem to still be together in the movie. They've removed a major character that played directly into the climax and major drama of the story and replaced him with a shitty reporter, which we'll get to. I don't even want to say replaced with because it's not even the same character function. But because the book is so directly from Alex's perspective and his thoughts, I found that this movie just really struggled to express a lot of what I loved about that story so much. Which I get is normal for adaptations, but there's ways to do it, even if it's just the occasional inner monologue that we get, but they just entirely did away with it. Honestly, for a minute, I thought that the movie might have switched itself to a whimsical fairy tale style narrator, then I realized it was just an English reporter of some sorts.
It was a storybook ceremony today inside Westminster Abbey.
So apologies to all the British viewers that I thought that was someone about to launch into whimsy. But it gets us our introduction to Prince Henry and Alex, who the movie suggests is often referred to as the American Prince Henry. Really just because they're both attractive and similarly aged dudes, is that it? But I can immediately tell that the budget for this was maybe struggling. The green screen shot of them at the palace is just, it's really not good. Ooh, look at me. I'm at Westminster Abbey. Now I'm in space. There's also going to be a scene from the White House later, and it is no better. They absolutely could have handled that in a better way, but I guess for at-home streaming, sure. But you may notice that Prince Henry is played by the guy from that atrocious Netflix movie Purple Hearts, which you can check out on my channel right now. Love how he went from mildly racist military guy to gay prince. Though heads up, he's also going to be a douche jock in Bottoms, which was my favorite movie out of South by Southwest, coming out at the end of this month, so keep an eye out for that. It was written by Emma Seligman and Rachel Sennett of Shiva Baby, directed by the former, starring the latter, along with Ayo Edebiri. It is gold. And Alex is that dude from The Kissing Booth. What is his name again? Which you can check out on my channel right now. But yeah, from early on, the vibes just kind of felt off to me. Instead of explaining how much space Henry occupied in Alex's mind over the years, they just say he's annoyed by always being compared to him. I know I've already mentioned I really just think this would have done better with a little bit of inner narration. So much fun from the book was us having access to his thoughts and being able to piece together the things he wasn't quite willing to admit within himself. And that's just all gone, so he kind of comes across as whiny in the intro.
So smug and entitled.
He's a prince, Alex. He's literally entitled.
But the flip on that is that we do end up getting some moments from Henry's perspective instead, which I actually quite enjoyed. Because Nicholas is committing to this role like he's expecting Oscar buzz or fishing for a better agent. So they are currently attending the royal wedding for Henry's older brother, Philip. And just like in the book, Alex drinks a little bit too much, which leads to a scuffle between him and Henry, causing them to knock over the $75,000 wedding cake. Sorry, the 75 British pound wedding cake. I'd like to point out that the press called this cake catastrophe when cake-tastrophe was right there. Why work against yourself? So pretty dramatic and enough to cause an international tizzy where people assume that there's a feud between the monarchy and the presidency, which is just entirely unheard of in the course of human history.
Is he gonna fact shit on me?
Yes. Making it was one of the most depressing moments of my career, and I once saw Mitch McConnell eating a banana.
But to flip this perception going into the election and avoid international embarrassment, Alex and Henry have to pretend to be best friends. But before that, just one quick thing. Is that Uma Thurman? Why is Uma Thurman here?
Represent the family at the royal wedding and don't cause an international incident.
With the southern drawl, like at least they bestowed upon her the title of president. Lots of familiar faces here though. Zara, his mom's chief of staff, is played by Shahi, who we recently saw in the hit Netflix disaster Sex Life, which you can also learn all about on my channel. So Alex has to go to England to make some public appearances with Henry. And we get some delightful sass right from the jump.
Alex, it's good to see you. Sober?
After doing a bunch of interviews, Henry takes him to read stories at a children's hospital, and I got so upset with how they changed this. At this point, Alex has seen a couple little glimmers that maybe he has some things wrong about Henry. But the big one is when he overhears Henry talking to a little girl at the hospital about Star Wars, saying that it's proof that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you can be great as long as you stay true to yourself. And they just cut that. It is perfectly on theme with the rest of the story, and they just cut it. Even if you didn't want to mention Star Wars, you just have them say the second part. They just cut right to the scene where they have to hide in the closet because some kid popped off little fireworks and I thought it might be guns. But this is where they reveal what Henry actually said to Alex to lead to this anger-fueled obsession. But then the movie changes what was said in the book. In the book, Alex goes to introduce himself, hoping that Henry might have kindness to help him navigate this new reality he's facing as the child of a massive political figure. And what he said to his assistant without even acknowledging his introduction was, "Can you get rid of him?" No way to misinterpret that as anything other than exceedingly rude and treating the person in front of you as lesser, which explains why he's been so upset, while the movie changes it to "get me out of here." Very different sentiment. It's still rude, but it's way more easy to take that as like, okay, maybe he was having a really bad day. Definitely still rude, but it doesn't mean it had to be specifically directed at me. But apparently what he had actually said was, "I need to get out of here." Which again, not the right vibe, even if that is genuinely how Henry felt. Because the whole point of that moment is Henry acknowledging and admitting that, yeah, he was a huge dick to everyone at that time in his life. Because his dad had recently passed away and they weren't affording him the right to grieve in private. They just immediately started carting him out to different events and insisted he attend them all. Also, his dad was an actor, apparently a long-standing James Bond, so there's some established royal family members going against tradition here as it stands going into where we're going. And we get that the change of what he said might seem like a nitpick, but it just made sense as to why Alex's emotions towards Henry were just so layered after idealizing this guy for so long in his mind, and then to then be treated like dirt by him, to it just flipping to something that could have easily had multiple interpretations right from the get-go. I don't know, it was such a little thing that they changed that didn't need to be changed, but I also just kind of find it interesting how like a couple words being flipped around can just modify things so much. Now they do end up showing Alex watching Henry be genuinely kind to kids in the hospital, but it just didn't have the same weight as that moment we got in the book. That one I will say I think is a bigger deal. But the two start texting each other all the time, mostly insult driven, but it's super cute, but definitely not like that. I also thought it was really creative how they handled it. Like even though they're texting from like across the Atlantic Ocean, like they would kind of like pop up in each other's realities and the environments as they text and then eventually talk on the phone, even though like they're not actually near each other. I thought that was really cute. Good job, team. But here's where I felt things directly start shifting in the plot progression. They bring in a journalist to hit on Alex. I just really hope that they were just going to use this as a way that we know it's a possibility that Alex likes dudes and that they'll confirm that these guys had hooked up before. Which very dumb when your mom is the president to hook up with a political journalist. I get that it's just a faster way to get us to that outcome, but I really liked the kind of like uncertainty we got inside Alex's head as he's just like completely ignoring bisexuality as a thing until Henry kisses him at his New Year's party. This is after they have a moment on the dance floor while everyone is getting low to get low by Lil Jon, and then like the eyes romantically meet from across the dance floor. It's art. But it hits midnight, a couple girls kiss Alex, Henry looks like he breaks inside a little and stumbles outside, where he talks about not being able to live his authentic life as a prince.
Because it's so hard for a prince to get a date.
People I date don't interest me, and the people who interest me, I can't date.
Okay, look, even if it wasn't the gay thing, it would be hard for a prince to get an authentic date, and Alex not realizing that makes him dumb.
It's as thick as it gets.
Now, because we're not in Alex's head, we don't get that confusion because he liked it. But at least we still got this gem of a line.
I mean, you've been wanting him to dick you down forever.
What?
Oh, Nora. Yeah, this is pretty much all the background history we'll get of Alex's obsession with Henry. But she rightfully points out to Alex why Henry would always be photographed with girls.
Princes aren't allowed to be gay. You should know that.
In the book, it was this little trickle thing of like, look, I don't like guys. I thought about it extensively. Like, yeah, me and my pal Leah made out that one time and like it wasn't weird, like while watching porn which I guess we did together a lot. And like one time he reached over for a little tug and I didn't stop him, but that's fine. It was a bro tug. I'm so sorry. But you know, he ultimately comes to the realization that people who don't like guys probably don't have to think about not liking guys that much. But as mentioned in the movie, we already know that he hooked up with that reporter, so the entirety of the drama is that Henry is a prince and that I guess he like hated him for a while. Which, yeah, fairly traumatic. I really hate that reporter though. I hope to hell they don't make this a love triangle. Because Henry completely starts to ignore Alex after the kiss, mostly because he thought he wasn't into it, so Alex lures him off at the next event for a makeout session, basically like, hey, sup, like that last time, let's do it more.
All right, fellas, time's up. We gotta get back to, oh God.
Well, now Alex's security detail knows. I did find that this all felt a little bit rushed, probably because we're not getting any of those inner thoughts from Alex, like they do what they can while he's talking to Nora, but still rushed. I guess we do at least get some decent jokes.
Your Royal Highness? Or Big Ben?
Now, it was around here I really assumed that they were gonna make this change where it's like the journalist notices them always sneaking off together and getting more suspicious, but we'll see. It's time to get spicy.
This changes nothing between us. I was about to say the same thing.
Okay, no, Henry does not say that. He even stopped to ask if he should be taking Alex on a date before they kissed. Alex was the one who, after they hook up, says that it doesn't have to change anything, and Henry seemed to want more from the jump, but just knew he couldn't have it. Doesn't stop Henry from inviting him to his polo charity match, though. And Alex is super into that little riding getup. Though it's cute, they do actually let this turn into a date afterwards and not just the suck and bail from the book. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You get what you can when you can.
I thought Alexander Gabriel Claremont Diaz was a mouthful.
He is.
Damn, Prince Henry with the wordplay! But it just becomes way more apparent how serious it is for Henry to conceal this part of himself because the monarchy won't allow it. Well, do I have some words for them about some of their royal members. Anyways, for some reason the movie changes it from being a queen to a king of England. They already weren't using real names or people like it was Queen Mary. Is it really just because she died recently that they didn't want to suggest that the queen would have been a homophobe? Like, I have no idea. Weird change. But Alex still, for some reason, just doesn't understand why Henry can't just be who he wants.
Prince Henry belongs to Britain. Henry Fox has to belong to himself, or else he'll vanish.
He really internalizes that responsibility he feels towards his people. Even though the monarchy is basically a figurehead and he wants to make actual changes in the world, he is just still really concerned about not meeting their expectations. So he can only belong to other people for little moments of time that can never last.
I think we should make love tonight.
Mixed signals, my guy. You want to keep things light and easy, can never fully commit, but you're just throwing around make love? Alex is down for it, though.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm down.
I do like this a lot more than in the book, where they are both very drunk for that first time, so I like that they made it a thing that they're both very present for. So Alex heads back to America and they just ignore the looming issues. Now, as mentioned, they really amp up the political work that Alex was trying to do in the book, which I actually like. Like, I know in the book, by the end, he decides to do law school and delay like the direct political side so that he can try to fight for people at a different legislative level first. But one of his major focuses was believing that he'd be able to switch Texas to Democratic. It's his mom's home state. It's where he grew up. He thinks by encouraging younger voters, minding the district lines, it might be possible. And while it was very hush-hush in the book, he actually writes a whole memo and tries to spread it through the campaign, so it leaks to Miguel, who then kind of like releases that into the public when he thinks he gets a confirmation on the story. While they're initially against it, they do end up sending him to Texas to try to enact those changes he proposed. But it's cool. He's very happy to be doing real work, all while they're exchanging ultra steamy and very romantic emails. And if you're worried about those emails, even though they should be on an encrypted server, you should be, because Miguel is just skulking around trying to get an exclusive or a hookup.
Do you honestly believe that we're ever hooking up again?
Well, I don't anymore.
They're definitely just gonna turn this into a scorned reporter-driven drama now, aren't they? Because he definitely just saw Henry show up right after Alex shut him down for leaking the memo. Ugh, I hate that, which I will explain soon, I promise. So Alex and Henry spend the night together, but Alex oversleeps his alarm, which leads Zara to bust into his room and realize that he's got someone in there, and that's not okay because obviously he needs to run all romantic interests by her so they can sign NDAs. You know, the real romantic love language.
Good morning.
Zara?
Breathe.
Don't you tell me what to do.
So at this point, you just play like NDA tag to see who's more at risk of this information leaking? Like, no, you signed an NDA. I'm the Prince of England. No, you need to sign an NDA. My mother's up for re-election of the land of the free-ish. Actually, Alex does try to compete about NDAs earlier on.
My NDA is bigger than yours. I want you to know that.
The Tsar being flustered is very fun, but Alex tells her not to tell his mom because he hasn't had a chance to yet.
You're the one who decided to put your dick into the heir to the British throne. And as for you, little Lord Fauntleroy, I want you chewing on a goddamn crumpet by sunset, and if anyone sees you leave this hotel, I will Brexit your head from your body.
See, it's just fun. She at least lets him tell his mom, and they make her a little bit cooler about it in the movie.
I mean, if I've had more warning, I could have made you a PowerPoint presentation.
Whereas in the book, she actually makes a PowerPoint presentation entitled Experimentation with Foreign Monarchs, a gray area. In the book, while she's supportive, she does pull him off her campaign entirely as a liability, like as if that would matter when he's her son. But yeah, it devastates him, but he does decide that Henry is worth it. They still have their little you gotta figure out if this is forever conversation, but the movie twists it more for how it would define his life over how it would affect the campaign.
I just want to make sure you know you need to wear a condom.
Okay, say what you will, they're playing it for a joke, but I will just applaud anytime these things mention safe sex. I am on board. It gets a point for that. So Alex invites Henry out to their Texas vacation home with his dad and Nora so they can just chill and be themselves away from prying eyes. It's sweet. They also move the karaoke scene to here if you were worried that was missing, but it's like not quite the energy from it that I wanted, but still nice. But this is where Alex realizes that he actually loves Henry and talks about how when the election's over, they'll be able to go in public about it because it won't matter anymore, which is just so dumb.
It's so dumb.
Sir, the bigger issue has always been the fact that he is the Prince of England. Doesn't matter if their history is filled with closeted gays, he has a duty to provide heirs and a public image to maintain, which is just so much harder now that cell phones are everywhere. Now in the book, Henry just ducks under the water and pretending that mosquitoes were harassing him before Alex can say anything and then heads to bed, which is still awkward, but at least an attempt at playing things off. In the movie, he just rolls off the dock and says nothing, then slips out of bed in the middle of the night to leave. So where did the conversation go between that? Like, they had to have talked. Alex must have been like, hey man, what was that about? But whatever, end result is the same. Henry ghosts him. And this is where we get one of those moments from Henry's perspective, him talking about it all with his sister, how it had to end before he got too close. Because again, it all just really comes down to that responsibility Henry feels he has to his legacy and the people specifically. All while not really respecting the antiquated qualities of the royalty. Definitely not a cool thing to do to Alex, but he is still far too confused for the situation and he needs answers. So Nora encourages him to get on a plane and storm that castle. It's definitely not as dramatic as it is in the book, where he is literally just yelling out windows in the middle of the night when Sean won't let him in. Oh yeah, Sean is Henry's equerry, which is basically a super high-ranking officer that directly attends to members of the royal family.
Through the butler. I'm not the butler, I'm the equerry.
But things still aren't looking so great for Alex here.
I've centuries of history bearing down on my shoulders.
Oh my god, he's so extra, it's so dramatic. But even if things weren't the way they were, he would still have apprehensions.
My life is the crown, and yours is politics, and I will not trade one prison for another.
Yeah, man, I get that. Most politics seem like a nightmare, but American politics in particular would probably push me to death.
I can love you and still not want that life.
And I think that's totally fair, and I like that they ramp that angle up outside his royal responsibilities, which makes sense, especially with how they have Alex speedrunning that career path. They literally have articles calling him the future of American politics. But the final play, Alex tells Henry that if he wants him to leave, he has to actually say it. He won't do it himself, and Henry can't do it. So they go to the museum. It's the one his father used to take him to before it opened, and now he goes by himself at night. It's really the only time and place where he can go and not feel gawked at, where you can just take in the art and appreciate it all. And he always imagined dancing there with someone that he loved. So obviously Alex cues up a song. Yeah, for a quick second I was like, is this man texting during an emotional moment? Okay, so apparently they couldn't get Your Song by Elton John, which is what it was supposed to be, but I guess the Elvis cover works. Maybe they just thought Elton was too fitting. It's cute, but it almost seems like they couldn't quite get like the logistical maneuvering for the dance down, but that's fine. So Henry is officially on board to try. He wants the love he has for Alex to be included in the history books, and that's not even like an arrogant way. He's a prince. There'll be extensive history about anything he ever does.
History, huh? Bet we could make some.
Okay, that was supposed to be in emails between the two of them because it ends up becoming like a support slogan t-shirt, but whatever. Before he heads back to America, Henry gives him his ring, so Alex gives him the key to his old house.
I'll be as patient as you need.
So now we get the drama. Henry wakes up to find that all of their private emails have been hacked and publicly released. And I instantly knew it was that sack of shit reporter. Henry wants to call Alex, but his devices have all been confiscated. In the book, this is all happening from Alex's perspective, but I thought it was nice to see Henry going through it. And a lot of that is because Nicholas is just crushing this role. Like, is it leaked emails or was someone just given a death sentence? But yeah, it's basically confirmed that Miguel is behind it all. He broke the story, like the text leaked, and then in under 2 hours, he had a fully polished story ready to go. And even though he's being called out on it because this is clearly a private matter, he argues that it's his job to contextualize these messages and how they may have affected campaign activity.
These emails clearly show a pattern of obfuscation around this relationship.
Stupid! Such a punchable face, I hate him. Nothing against the actor, I'm sorry man, this character just genuinely sucks. And not in like a fun way where you're like, that character's a bad person but they're fun to watch. This character just sucks. But how does that differ from the book? So the emails leak and they have some pictures taken through a windshield of a car catching them kiss. They end up finding out it was Jeffrey Richards, the opposition leader's team, who paid to have Alex stalked and this info leaked. And it's a very huge deal and crime because those are private servers. The movie just makes it seem like this was a reporter who was upset that Alex wouldn't sleep with him again and then he needed a scoop, which sucks. I don't understand why they couldn't at least just keep it at that level in the movie, because yeah, in the book it does go like a level deeper. There was a gay senator that Alex looked up to, and halfway through the book he switches side to the Republican campaign. And it's this huge betrayal until they realize that he's the one who anonymously let them know that it was the Richards team behind the hacks and everything that ended up leaked, and that they paid people to stalk Alex. Because when he was just starting out, he had an internship with Richards, who is apparently one of the many family values politicians that say they're against gay people while also soliciting sex from young male employees behind the scenes, which thankfully he managed to avoid even though he was solicited, but it didn't stop Richards from continuing to try. And there really wasn't anything he could do about it without ruining his life and career. He wanted to leak that going to the election, but they didn't want him to, so he switched sides to try and protect any other vulnerable people Richards might have been coming into contact with. So obviously I can understand needing to chop a lot of that out, but there was really just no reason not to still blatantly focus on the fact that this was like a political opposition doing like crimes to try to win the election. There's no reason why they couldn't keep that in instead of changing it to a fucking scorned reporter or whatever. Even if he wasn't scorned, it's just dumb. But logistics just keep getting messier because before Alex can even talk to Henry about the leaks or the White House can delegate with England, he's making a national press release about it. And it's nice honing in on the violation of privacy into gay rights and then simplifying that down to love. Now in the book, they immediately head to London to try to figure things out before making any statement, but Alex does finally get to talk to Henry here because Zara has a direct line because she and Sean have been maintaining a secret relationship.
I'm not going to get any work done until you put these two lovesick homosexuals on the phone with one another.
All leading into a meeting with the king himself, played by Stephen Fry. Like, of course they got Stephen Fry to play the king, but still don't know why it wasn't a queen. Was Helen Mirren not available? She's been in the Fast and Furious. She's not too good for this. And while Henry's sister is incredibly supportive, their brother Philip is staunchly against it. It doesn't matter what your proclivities are as long as no one knows energy. So the king ends up suggesting that they could maintain that this was all doctored, that the emails were fake, but Alex already confirmed it was true in a nationwide international address. So kind of not an option anymore. But Henry maintains that it's real and that he's ready to live as his authentic self regardless of the consequences, but it turns out he really had nothing to worry about because the British people are outside rallying for their gay prince. It's not like he's the one in direct line for the throne.
Technically, I'm the spare.
I'm joking. I'm sure that'd still be fine. This is another moment where you can tell they kind of had some issues with the budget. They don't really show the people. They just do a weird little window reflection where maybe there's a ton of people down there and some flags going. And the Americans are supportive too. Well, at least in the book, it's very clear. Like they started making the History Huh shirts. Not only is it a massive breach of privacy, it's also super concerning that a presidential candidate would engage in such behavior. Which brings us to election night, which still just seems way too close, and it's all coming down to Texas. And in a moment that undoubtedly feels like pure science fiction in the current political landscape, Texas flips blue. Look, I'm Canadian, don't come for me. So yeah, she wins, woo! But as far as I can tell, they just completely abandoned the idea that Richards orchestrated the hack, which again, I hate. It also feels a little bit weird that the Prince of England is getting on stage for the president to deliver her acceptance speech. That just feels like a thing he shouldn't be doing, like he can't even vote in his own country. But yeah, happily ever after, we had a nice little focus on electoral power, which I agree with. Go vote, not just at the federal level, pay attention locally. And then it ends pretty abruptly with Alex showing Henry his childhood home, which I think the book felt pretty abrupt there too, but it just kind of feels like a sequel is inevitable, and I know it's not off the table. But now just for a couple other thoughts to wrap it up, I don't think they focused enough on the things Henry wanted to do. Like, he had a passion for helping underprivileged kids and actually makes that a reality. I think it's a place in New York near one of the shelters he's running, and he has shelters for youth all around the world, and he just wants to be super involved, and they leave all that out. They also don't bother bringing Henry's mom into the picture. She had kind of completely checked out after the death of the father as well, but now that she knows everything that's going on, she's trying to step up and have Henry's back against her own mother, the Queen. That would have been nice to see here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I still feel like it's a mostly nice little adaptation that should have people more interested in reading the source material, and I hope they do, because it was really nice and lovely. So if like any part of this premise worked for you, I would recommend checking out the book. But it's hard not to walk away thinking that this movie didn't do the story quite as much justice as it could have based on what some of those changes were. But that is pretty much gonna do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys are thinking of Red, White, and Royal Blue down below. Was this one of your favorite books? Had you never even heard of this before? So many people asked for this, so I hope you're here and you enjoyed, and I hope that maybe you came away liking the movie a lot more than me. I would have been interested to see the movie before having read the book, but I needed to get ahead on work, so that's the order I went in. A lot of times I try to do the opposite because I like trying to give the movie as much of a chance to stand on its own 2 feet as possible. But thank you all so much for watching. Thanks again to Copilot for sponsoring the video. Make sure to check the link in the description down below to find out how you can get 14 days free with your own personal trainer. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later.